death that caused the release of the Wendigo.
Troma Entertainment, founded by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Herz, has been serving a shock, gore, splatter, and parody since the 1970s, when this independent company started producing low-budget B-films and horror comedies, while projects like Toxic Avengers and Class of Nuke High have become cult classics and received all the attention. Some rare gems went under the radar. Well, look no further, because it's time to shine the spotlight on 12 must-watch underrated Troma movies of all time. Buckle up, put your seatbelts on, and get ready, because we're about to go on one hell of a ride. Let's get started.
And they would have sprayed their own men.
Oh, listen to G.I. Joe.
1. Combat Shock, 1986. If you want to be depressed, horrified, and low-key traumatized for 90 minutes straight, then Combat Shock by Buddy Giovinazzo is the film for you. An exploitation war drama film. It follows a shell-shocked Vietnam veteran, Frankie, as he attempts to adjust to a normal life in Staten Island. Except there's nothing normal about his life. Struggling with unemployment, a marriage at its last straw, and a deformed baby. This film is as bleak as it gets. I won't spoil the ending for you guys, but beware and proceed at your own risk. You've been warned. What's even scarier is that the original theatrical version, which was actually titled American Nightmares, had to be heavily cut. Fun fact, the deformed baby was voiced by none other than our director, Buddy Giovinazzo. Now, while audiences have called the film terrifying, nightmare-inducing, and extremely disturbing, it has also been applauded for its bold, unflinchingly honest portrayal of the mental health of veterans and the struggles of poverty and unemployment. Some audiences have even called it strangely perfect, but I couldn't agree more. If you're someone who likes torturing themselves with films that are a perfect mix of visual and psychological horror, and I mean nerve-shattering horror, then go watch Combat Shock right now.
USA und studierte hier Naturwissenschaften. Bekam 1956 die Ehrendoktorwürde für
2. Killer Condom, 1996. Yep, this film is exactly what it sounds like. Directed by Martin Walls. Directed by Martin Volz. This bizarre horror comedy begins in the Hotel Quickie, where a professor pretty much blackmails his student into having sex. But as the professor tries to put on the condom, it comes alive and bites off his penis. Sounds crazy, right? Well, this is just the beginning. We then witness a gay, chain-smoking, trenchcoat-wearing NYPD detective, Luigi Macaroni, and a gigolo named Billy investigate this string of crimes committed by the carnivorous condom, while also grappling with their feelings for one another. The film is actually based on Rolf Kunish's comic of the same name, which is probably why the film maintains a cartoonish yet grotesque tone. Now, if you want to find out where this killer condom came from and why it's so hungry for penises, you've got to watch the film. Although the film wasn't successful commercially, audiences have given some raving reviews. Apart from the fact that the film is an absolute campy masterpiece and surprisingly bold, it also involves commentary on queer identity, homophobia, and religious fanaticism. It's like a noir film, but with teeth and a message. 3. Cannibal, the musical, 1993. I'm sure you've heard of Trey Parker and Matt Stone, the guys who created South Park. Guess what? Long before that, they directed and produced a darkly comic musical revolving around the story of a cannibal. In fact, the musical was based on the real-life cannibal Alfred Packer, also known as the Colorado Cannibal, who was the only man in U.S. history to be convicted of cannibalism. It follows his journey from Utah to Colorado with a party of 5 miners who apparently taste real good. Now in the film, Packer has a horse named Leanne, and there's quite an interesting backstory to it. The horse was actually named after Trey Parker's former fiancée, Leanne Adamo. Back then, Parker had discovered his wife was having an affair, so he gave her name to the horse that would let anyone ride her. What do you guys think? Is that petty or completely justified? Moreover, before Troma picked it up, this film was nothing more than a college project, with Parker himself taking up the role of Alfred Packer. As for the film, it has a number of catchy tunes and is nothing short of hilarious. Think Disney, but with blood and gore.
Moving too far to the left!
4. Monster in the Closet, 1986. If you've ever been that kid who's afraid they have monsters in the closet, this might be just the film for you. Not only will it leave you laughing, but it will also give you a new perspective on your fear. So, the film occurs in the quaint town of Chestnut Hills, where 3 people have been mysteriously killed in their closets by some creature. Enter the duo of Richard Clark, a news reporter, and Diane Bennett, a local biology teacher, who take it upon themselves to stop the monster and save Diane's son, Professor. And guess who plays Professor? It's none other than the dear, late Paul Walker. Now, there have been mixed reviews from audiences where some believe the flick is not that great and label it a cheap satire, while others praise it as a campy cult classic. We believe the film completely embraces its B-movie status, with a lacking budget and tongue-in-cheek humor. It also adds a not-too-subtle gay allegory in the mix. Overall, if you can get over some of the dated jokes, what awaits you is a wacky, memorable, must-watch Troma gem.
You do Chelsea J. Chris Kaufman for all of it.
I do.
5. Father's Day, 2011. Here, we have a film that was actually well received by both critics and audiences. During its initial release back in 2011, Father's Day, directed by Astron 6, is a revenge thriller unlike any before. It follows a vigilante hunting down a serial rapist and murderer known as the Father's Day Killer. Our main man, Ahab, lost his own father to the serial killer Chris Fuckman some near 30 years ago, and now embarks on a bloody journey for payback, joined by the priest John and the hot-headed street hustler Twink. Now, if you think you know how revenge thrillers go, think again, because I guarantee the twists in the film are nothing you will expect. It's so good that initially conceptualized as a short film, they had no choice but to expand it due to the immense positive reception. Some fans have even called it the best Troma film ever and applauded the skills of the studio and team behind this genius. It'll take you on a shocking, gore-filled, hilarious, and brutal ride, and you'll be begging for more.
I don't know anything!
Oh, yeah?
6. Sergeant Kabuki Man, NYPD, 1990. Michael Herz and Lloyd Kaufman return on our list with this comedy-action superhero parody film. As the name suggests, we have an NYPD detective, Sergeant Harry Griswold, who's busy investigating a bunch of murders of kabuki actors. However, in this pursuit, he gets possessed with the spirit of a kabuki master, all through the power of a kiss, and becomes one of the most unusual superheroes ever. Then, as the Chosen, he becomes endowed with powers such as the ability to fly, and unique weapons like the fatal sushi and heat-seeking chopsticks, as he wages his battle against crime and evil. Sounds interesting, right? Today, Kabuki Man is a mascot of Troma's slapstick silly humor, and very rightly so. This film is pure comedy gold. It has been called absolutely brilliant by fans. It has left behind its own legacy, and one of its scenes of a car crashing and flipping over has been repurposed and used in several other Troma flicks in the future. So what are you waiting for? Go watch Sergeant Kabuki Man right away.
The Circle.
7. Frostbiter, Wrath of the Wendigo, 1995. Set in snowy Michigan, Frostbiter sees a duo of redneck hunters accidentally break a sacred circle, which awakens the legendary creature Wendigo, originating from Native American folklore. Naturally, the mythical beast goes on a rampage and gruesomely murders a whole bunch of hunters. Left standing, we have a gun-toting hero and his chosen woman who are burdened with the task of defeating the Wendigo. If you're a fan of franchises like The Evil Dead, then this film is right up your alley, as it was heavily inspired by Evil Dead. The film was originally made by Tom Chaney on the minimal budget of just $17,500. All his own money, by the way. It uses hilarious practical effects, stop-motion monsters, and has a scrappy but inventive DIY feel to it. However, despite being rough around the edges, the film epitomizes Troma and is a thoroughly entertaining parody that deserves a watch. Evil Dead walked so that Frostbiter could run. 8. There's Nothing Out There, 1991. Long before Scream and meta horror became pop culture cornerstones, and a symbol for slasher parodies, There's Nothing Out There by Rolf Kanefsky actually did it first. In fact, it went on to inspire Wes Craven's franchise later on. Of course, to no surprise. The film begins with a horror-obsessed teen who starts noticing the typical slasher cliches and horror movie traditions playing out around him. He and his friends are headed to a cabin in the woods to spend their spring break, as he tries his best to warn them all that something sinister is out there. A serial killer, maybe. A madman? Nope. It's a monstrous mutant frog, ready to pick off the unaware teens one by one. The film is an underrated gem that, despite being offbeat, is a cult staple in the horror comedy genre, and you can see Kanefsky's passion through and through. Did you know Kanefsky's parents had to put their house on mortgage to raise the film's budget? Well, I must say, it was worth it. 9. Dead Dudes in the House, 1989. Directed by James Riffle, Dead Dudes in the House centers on a group of friends including Mark and his girlfriend Jamie, who go to a huge remote house that Mark has recently purchased. to renovate and fix it up. It's a dark and creepy haunted house slasher, and as all such horror films go, there's always that one overconfident skeptic who accidentally unleashes havoc on the rest. In this film, it's this dude called Bob who decides to smash the gravestone of an elderly woman named Abigail Leatherby. Then, as they enter the house, they find that very same old woman still living there. So what happens next, you ask? Well, you gotta watch the film to find out. The film actually goes by several other names as well, such as The Dead Come Home, which is the original title, and The House on Tombstone Hill. Now, unlike other Troma films, there's nothing funny about this one. It's a horror slasher, through and through, and one of Troma's more atmospheric entries.
And all those other poor women who had died in that horrible prison. They would never...
10. Lust for Freedom, 1987. Lust for Freedom is a women in prison exploitation flick directed by Eric Lucille that is full of nudity and violence. Talk about a sleaze fest. It's narrated by an undercover detective, Jillian Cates, whose husband is murdered in front of her during a drug bust. Unfortunately, she's framed for the crime and is wrongfully imprisoned. Here, she must fight through abuse and corruption and make it out of a brutal facility. Fortunately, she's not alone. She bands together with a bunch of her fellow inmates and plots to escape. Lucille takes this relatively simple premise and turns it into a wild ride, one to remember. Did you know that the scenes of Jillian's house were actually filmed in Lucille's house? Well, Lust for Freedom is a ridiculous, cheesy, and brainless film. It perfectly captures the vibes of movies in the 80s, with a synthesizer soundtrack, non-stop rock and roll, and barely any well-written characters or real actors. This film can be summed up in 3 words: cuffs and chaos. So next time you're up at 1 a.m. and looking for something you can watch just for fun, give Lust for Freedom a shot. It might just become your new guilty pleasure.
There's nowhere to go.
Shut up, Jennifer, you bitch!
Let her go, Casey!
11. Terror Firma, 1999. Directed by Lloyd Kaufman, Terror Firma is as meta as it gets. This Troma film revolves around a low-budget Troma film and its crew, except there's a homicidal maniac on the loose, and it's up to the film crew to put an end to it. It's the perfect blend of satire and slasher. It even sprinkles in some romance in the form of a love triangle between the production assistant, Jennifer, and 2 polar opposite men, the prim and proper boom operator Casey and the rebellious special effects operator Jerry. This film is often known as one giant tribute to all Troma films, with a bunch of references to real people and events on Troma, sets and callbacks to previous Troma films. Most surprisingly, this film is loosely based on Lloyd Kaufman's autobiography, co-written with James Gunn, who's currently enjoying all the praise for Superman. This film perfectly showcases the creativity and craftiness of Troma films. It is disgusting, perverse, but uproariously funny, and a must-watch.
Hurt my baby.
12. Death by Temptation, 1990. This supernatural horror focuses on an evil succubus who is preying on black men in New York City, particularly 2 men, Joel, who's a priest in training, and his childhood best friend Kay, who's a big-time actor in New York. As random men begin disappearing with the temptress, a 3rd character comes into the picture, Dougie, Kay's police friend who dabbles in supernatural cases and starts noticing the peculiar happenings. This film is not only more polished than most other Troma films, but it also stars some mainstream connections in the form of Kadeem Hardison and Samuel L. Jackson. Death by Temptation perfectly combines themes of faith, temptation, desire, and infidelity, while remaining stylish and atmospheric. Of course, it's not outright scary or anything, but it does have a visual appeal, especially Cynthia Bond's depiction of the seductive temptress. While some have called the film yet another average black exploitation film, others have called it a grade A, B-grade movie. So why don't you guys watch the film and end this debate once and for all in the comments section below? Marvelous verdict. So, those are the 12 must-watch underrated Troma movies of all time. From campy horror comedies like Killer Condom to more atmospheric, well-done slashers like Dead Dudes in the House. Troma Entertainment is a treasure trove waiting to be explored further, and with every deep dive, you'll find something new. If you think you've seen it all in cult cinema, you thought wrong. So what did you think of the above list? Which one's your favorite? And have we missed any other underrated gems? Let us know. Drop a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. We'll see you next time.